Hey, good morning, everyone. We'll get started. If everyone maybe just silence their phones, that would be great. It's really good to see everyone here at the ribbon cutting ceremony for the New Hampshire Digital Forensics Laboratory at Homeland Security Investigations right here in Manchester, New Hampshire. My name is Michael Kroll. I'm the special agent in charge of HSI New England. I'm honored to be here, joined by my team and our distinguished guests today. With that, I'd like to recognize multiple dignitaries who not only continue to provide critical support to our shared mission of combating crimes of exploitation and victimization, but who also support our broader investigative mission, both domestic and foreign. Senator Maggie Hassan, Senator Jean Shaheen, represented by our staff here today, Congresswoman Ann Custer, chiefs, sheriffs, too many to name, but thank you. And last but not least, ICAC Commander Eric Kinsman of the New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. Thank you all for your support and your presence here today. The New Hampshire Digital Forensics Laboratory is home to the New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, whose collective mission is focused on protecting children and vulnerable members of society from sexual abuse and exploitation. HSI is the proud host and dedicated member of the New Hampshire ICAC Task Force. This essential mission, executed faithfully not only in New Hampshire, but mirrored throughout New England and around the world, matches HSI's priorities as a global law enforcement organization supported by a workforce of 10,000 strong, stationed in 220 domestic and 90 international offices. We at HSI are responsible for conducting a broad range of federal criminal investigations, from disrupting and dismantling single malicious actors who reside in our local communities to toppling sophisticated transnational criminal organizations with worldwide reach. In 2022, HSI's agency-wide efforts led to the arrest of more than 4,400 child abuse offenders. That is a staggering statistic. And it also led to the identification and or rescue of more than 1,100 victims. Locally, HSI New England dedicates more than 20% of our investigative hours to crimes of sexual exploitation against children. Most of our early mornings and late nights are spent side by side with our state and local law enforcement partners who share in our unrelenting passion to protect children and rid our communities of these horrific crimes. We know from experience that child exploitation violators are early adopters of some of the most enhanced encryption and digital security technology. Thanks to the modernization and expansion of the lab, the law enforcement heroes who execute this mission in New Hampshire will continue to have the resources to meet the evolving technical challenge posed by violators and can now do so in a cohesive and collaborative environment. Thank you very much for being here today. It is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome Senator Maggie Hassan to the table.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Special Agent Kroll, for the introduction, for your comments just now, and for everything that you and your team does to help keep our communities safe. And I'm also really grateful for the leadership and dedicated efforts of Jay McCormick and Lieutenant Kinsman, all of the law enforcement in the room, our U.S. Attorney who is here. I just want to thank you all for everything you do to keep us safe. It's great to be here with Congresswoman Custer, too, and I'm honored to work with the Congresswoman to ensure that our law enforcement has the tools that they need to succeed. Most importantly, though, I want to take a moment to express how deeply I appreciate the critical work that everyone here and beyond is doing to help keep Granite Staters and particularly New Hampshire's children, safe. And I also want to recognize the importance of this newly expanded and updated facility in helping with those efforts. The most important job of government is to keep people safe. And the Homeland Security Investigations Team and the New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force helps do just that every single day. Protecting our communities is never easy, and I know that your work is particularly challenging, both professionally and personally. These are often among the most heinous and heartbreaking stories that you have to listen to and see in order to bring perpetrators to justice and to protect children. We all want our kids to be safe, so your work is invaluable in helping protect our children and protecting them from some of the most dangerous threats imaginable. On behalf of Granite Staters, thank you, and please know that you always have our deepest gratitude. This newly updated facility is going to be instrumental in supporting your efforts. As you know, these renovations give federal, state, and local law enforcement more space and better means to more efficiently and effectively process digital information. By modernizing this facility and bolstering resources, this renovation is helping to ensure that you all have the best chances for success in your critical mission. I know that there's always more we can do to help keep our communities safe, which is why, as your senator, I'm going to continue to work across party lines to support your vital efforts. No matter one's political party, all Granite Staters and all Americans should stand united together in support of our kids. I'll do whatever I can to help ensure that law enforcement has all the tools that you need to succeed. So thank you again for helping protect our children and our communities. And now I'll turn things back over to Special Agent Cole.
Thank you. Great to be with you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you to all of you from law enforcement, the U.S. Attorney's Office. I know we have some community partners with us, and it's great to be with you today to honor the Homeland Security Manchester and New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force new lab. I am the founder and co-chair of the bipartisan task force to end sexual violence in the House of Representatives. And we work with Senator Hassan, Senator Shaheen, Congressman Pappas, and all of our colleagues on both sides of the aisle to address crimes, particularly against children, that relate to sexual exploitation, sex trafficking. We work with law enforcement, and we are incredibly proud of the 10-year partnership between the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force and Homeland Security that's going to continue at this new site. I've worked with survivors, law enforcement, and advocates to address human trafficking, including child exploitation. And I've met with survivors here in New Hampshire through the Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and I've heard the horrific stories of exploitation and sex trafficking right here in our home state. I think it's hard for most people born and raised here and living in New Hampshire to even understand that this might be going on in such a beautiful community. But we all have to be vigilant, we all have to be diligent, and we all have to make sure that we do whatever we can to support your efforts to bring perpetrators to justice. Following the release of an investigative report highlighting disturbing growth in online child exploitation across the country, I first introduced the End Child Exploitation Act. The report found that technology companies had reported more than 69 million images and videos depicting abuse of children. Currently, these companies are required to retain information on these images for 90 days after reporting material. Our bill, the End Child Exploitation Act, will double the time frame to 180 days to ensure that these companies are legally able to retain the material and to ensure that these companies are legally able to retain the material even longer if needed to prevent the proliferation or spread of child exploitation material online. So I look forward to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to pass this legislation in the current Congress. Further, we know all too well that the COVID-19 pandemic caused a stark increase in child sexual abuse material reports. This is why I'm heartened and proud to see the continued partnership of Homeland Security with your Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. Because of your work, we can continue to face the challenges head on, to work together the Granite State way, and to reduce the scourge of sexual violence of all kinds in our community, particularly among our most vulnerable, our children. It's my privilege and pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Thanks for your support. Chris Scott from Senator Shaheen's office.
Thank you, Special Agent Kroll, Senator, Congresswoman, our esteemed U.S. Attorney in the back. Unfortunately, Senator Shaheen was unable to make it. She wished she could be here. She's in Washington, D.C. this morning, but she did send along a letter that she asked me to share, so if I may. Dear friends, I wish I could be with you in person for the official unveiling of your digital forensics laboratory. Please know that I join you in spirit as we reflect on your important mission and look forward to the opportunities provided by this new facility to strengthen child safety and protections. Thank you to everyone here at HSI and the New Hampshire ICAC for all you do in support of this worthy cause. This new state-of-the-art digital forensics laboratory will help to protect society's greatest gift and most precious asset, our children. Your diligent, collaborative, round-the-clock work is essential in fostering an environment that values their welfare in their most formative years. To all involved in helping HSI and the ICAC achieve their shared mission, thank you. Thank you for making a difference. Thank you for your service and your vigilance, and thank you for all you do to make New Hampshire and the region a safe place for all of us, but especially our children, and I look forward to hearing more about your important, impactful work. Sincerely and signed, Jean Shaheen, United States Senator.
And last but certainly not least, Eric Kinsman.
Thank you. Good morning. In 2022, the New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force received over 1,825 cyber tips from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This number represents a 243% increase in cyber tips New Hampshire received when compared to as recently as 2018. Attacking this increase simply does not happen with any level of success without the dedication from the men and women from over 100 affiliated law enforcement agencies here in New Hampshire, and many of those agencies are represented here today. They are New Hampshire ICAC, and it's truly my honor to work with them each and every day. And while their work is commendable and deserves a high level of recognition, it's also important to recognize the strong commitment and cooperation we receive from Homeland Security Investigations and the U.S. Attorney's Office. HSI's support provides a higher level of success in our overall case outcomes. It's a privilege New Hampshire ICAC does not take lightly, and I truly look forward to our continued partnership. I'd also like to formally recognize and thank Senator Hassan, Congresswoman Custer, and Senator Shaheen. The legislation you work hard for and provide is what makes funding for projects like this possible. And it's important to note that your continued efforts have a direct impact on the fight against child exploitation crimes here in New Hampshire. At this time, I'd like to invite all of you upstairs. We'll proceed with our ceremony and answer any more questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.
Does anyone want to say a couple words?
Well, thank you everyone for coming. It's my honor to be present here with the commander, Eric Kinsman, to open up the lab. Thank you.
It's official.
Oh, very nice. Include you once again.
A brief overview of kind of the general way of how things normally happen. So as you know, there are 61 ICAC task forces across the country. Each task force works a little bit differently. Here in New Hampshire, it's our main mission to provide support to law enforcement agencies here in the state in an effort to fight these child exploitation crimes. So when we are out executing a search warrant, it's really no different than any other type of search warrant where we are going. We're looking to collect evidence that may indicate, the implication of a crime. So when that evidence is seized, that evidence is initially taken by the agency that we are assisting, and then that evidence gets signed over to the New Hampshire ICAC for forensic examination and processing. So having this new lab in this new space allows things to get done a little bit faster, because gone are the days when we're executing a warrant and taking just one cell phone or one laptop. It's very common where we're going to these locations and taking multiple pieces of evidence. So to have a backlog be created, it happens relatively easily. So to have this new space and the working relationship that we have with Homeland Security Investigations allows us to process evidence faster. It also allows members from the affiliated agencies that we have here in the state to come here and use the lab as well, because the forensic examiners are kind of spread out in different locations in the state. So I can kind of give you a kind of a general walkthrough in terms of where things are. So located in this area over here. So in this workspace over here, this would be a space where it's a workstation where it would allow our forensic examiners to take a computer apart, to start processing hard drives, that type of stuff. So they have this workspace here. Again, the space that we had in the old lab was somewhat antiquated. It wasn't common, where people were kind of working very close with one another, and you just need that space to work out again because we're processing multiple pieces of evidence. So this is a space where they have that workstation, they have that bench where they can kind of do that, and they can process all of that evidence and get it ready for processing. On just the other side here is a space where they will perform sort of the digital forensic downloads. So a lot of these crimes do involve cell phones, for example. It's pretty common where most of these crimes, we're always taking at least one cell phone from a location. Cell phones have gotten more technologically advanced as the years have gone on. So while they may also have evidence on computers, we're finding a lot of it located on cell phones as well. So this provides us an area where cell phones can be processed using specialized digital forensic equipment. For example, these boxes that you see here allow the cell phones to be maintained inside the box. It protects the cell phone from being able to be accessed from outside the lab, because sometimes suspects can remote wipe a drive, for example. So having a cell phone in there while it's waiting to be processed protects the phone from having any possible evidence from being eliminated and destroyed. So they can do that here at this station. And then the unfortunate piece too is the fact that we're pulling many bytes of evidence that need to be processed. Lots of images, lots of MP4 files, for example. So that needs to be processed and gone through to figure out exactly what type of evidence is going to be used for the actual prosecution of the case. So that's where these stations behind you come into play. So once the evidence is downloaded off of a phone, the examiners can take their time, they can sit comfortably, they can actually start going through all of those images, figuring out exactly, this is again where we'll meet with prosecutors from either the county attorney's office or the U.S. attorney's office. They'll work together and kind of identify certain pieces of whether imagery or files that will actually be used for prosecution. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that's striking me is in terms of just evidentiary standards and chain of custody and any questions or attacks from defense attorneys, you've got room to have a process in place and technology to have it, to be able to answer those questions and protect the evidence.
Exactly.
That way, right?
Again, because as I was mentioning, we're not just taking one or two cell phones or a laptop, we're taking multiple pieces. So this new space allows for the safe and proper storage of that evidence until it can be processed. And then actually reviewing all that evidence together and going on from there. And what we really didn't have before was usable office space. So, you know, for the forensic examiners, they have a space to actually sit in an office, be able to get, you know, other administrative duties done. So again, this new lab, as a whole, is just far and away light years ahead of what we had before. And it really will provide us the opportunity to kind of stay ahead of the game as best we can. Yeah. So.
That was a dramatic increase, 1,800.
Yeah, you know, and it was mentioned before about how, you know, back as, like I said, as recently as 2018, as far as the ICAC task force goes, we were averaging anywhere between 35 to 50 cyber tips per month, which at the time, it was like, you know, we're busy. Those were, you know, that was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then we saw that massive spike during the pandemic, and we were averaging anywhere between 150 to 200 cyber tips per month. And for the longest time, we thought that, well, once we get through the pandemic, it'll be fine. It'll be back the way that it was before. And it never really dropped off.
Yeah.
And so while the pandemic played a part in it, at the end of the day, unfortunately, you have more and more apps being developed every single day. And you have kids that are younger and younger getting access to
into it,
these.
yeah.
So it used to be when we were pulling statistics, we were pulling statistics from kids between the ages of 12 and 17. But now we're seeing kids as young as 6 and 7 and 8 who are having access to these devices, because a lot of times what parents will do is they'll take their old phones,
Right.
give them to their kids to play games on, whatever, but unfortunately, a lot of these apps don't need a cell phone plan to access. All you need is a Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah.
And so it has the propensity to kind of open some dangerous doors, for
So,
sure.
I mean, this is part of the public communication piece for parents.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking to parents a lot about the dangers of adolescents going online to order medications that they
Mhm.
think are standard,
Right.
you know, medications like Adderall, and they're
Right.
being laced with other things, which is the other piece of this work,
Right.
is the drug trafficking and the use of these devices for that. But it's another reminder
Yeah.
to talk to parents about.
And that's
Yeah.
certainly part of the task force's mission as well. And in addition to providing assistance to agencies and, you know, working these cases as quick as we can, we also have a big part of our time is spent doing community outreach and education, because it's a way in which we can be proactive. I mean, with 1,800 cyber tips, much of our work is reactive.
Yeah.
And we try to be proactive as we
Get out
can.
ahead
So
of it.
getting out into the community, talking to parents and teachers and professionals and students
Yeah.
about the dangers that are out there is important, because if we kind of, stop one case and that's it, it's making a difference. And so we
Yeah.
do talk much about that. Yeah,
And then the
absolutely.
exposure to the younger children and the risk to them.
Right.
It just multiplies.
Right.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we see,
We had
a
a
lot of cases.
huge increase in the national hotline,
Mhm.
and for the first time during COVID, the the youth abuse exceeded the adult abuse.
Right.
And, we were thinking, oh, you're just working from home and you're doing school from home, like, how lovely. But if you're locked in with your predator,
Right.
this is not a good situation.
Yeah, and that's exactly the predators that they prey on children's, children, by
Naivete.
their nature,
Yeah,
they think that people are
curiosity.
inherently are good,
And they think people are safe.
Right.
Well, and the other thing is that
Family
you just
members.
also don't have exposure to mandated reporters, right?
Yes.
So a child
Yeah.
goes to school, interacts with
A
an
teacher.
educator who's had some training and knows what to look for. It's more likely that we will be able to
find.
intercept and find out. And the longer kids go without that exposure to mandated
Yeah.
reporters.
And it's a learning piece too for the parents,
Yeah.
and we tell, Matt comes with me a lot, and we do a lot of presentations. A lot of our task force members do great presentations. And, parents, unfortunately, this day and age are in sort of this uncharted territory, like to a certain degree, I told my kids to put their seatbelt on because that's what I was told. I know that it's safe. You will be
Right.
safer by doing it.
But they have
But
devices we
parents
didn't even
are
know.
forced to parent in a territory that didn't exist when they were kids. So, we tell parents all the time, listen, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not have the answer. What statistically is better is to provide a safe environment, so when your child does, get into a situation where it's dangerous, that they feel safe to go to mom and dad or to go on law enforcement and seek for help. Unfortunately, parents, although their hearts are in the right place, they're telling their kids, if I ever catch you with Snapchat on your phone, I'm gonna
Yeah.
take your phone away until you're
Yeah.
30. It's like, Well, that's a death sentence for kids almost, you know, so the kids are forced to kind of choose between the lesser of evils, but so we try to encourage parents to have that conversation with their kids and create that safe environment. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
coming.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you all for the work that you're doing just to keep our families safe.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's a combined effort.
Yeah.
It really is.
Can you talk
briefly about Nico's role?
Actually, I will be more than happy to let talk about it.
You get to talk about it.
He's such a good
Unless
commander.
Nico wants to talk about Nico's role.
So this is obviously Nico. He's a 4-year-old, half lab, half golden. He was a career change from Paws with a Cause in Michigan, where he was born and raised. He was trained at a facility in Indianapolis called Jordan Detection K9, who's the worldwide leader in electronic storage detection. So he's deployed here in New Hampshire since May of 2020. Last week we deployed for our 206th time in 34 months. He can find cell phones, hard drives, computers, flash drives, micro SD cards, hidden cameras, air tags, anything that transmits data or stores data. To date, he's been very successful in finding 3 hidden cameras here in New Hampshire and have been tied to 8 investigations that actually rescued children who were being manufactured for child sex abuse material. So to say we're proud of him is an understatement. He can be used inside, outside. He can find stuff in water, stuff buried in the ground. So he and I cover the state together, and we deploy right out of here to wherever they need us every week, and to make sure we get to the warrants to help
And he
assist.
could find the hidden cameras.
He can, yep.
Oh, my
There is a chemical compound sprayed on electronic storage devices at the time of manufacturing. It's something that can't be defeated, and so because of that, we can teach canines to find that. And when we do that, they can find those devices in the homes of the predators.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's the message
super
to get
valuable.
out.
Yeah. Who doesn't love a dog,
You can't
right?
hide from Nico.
No, you can't.
Yeah, no, you can't, that's really great.
So yeah, he's there are other built-in things when you have a canine of this nature, like this lab and the work that's done here by the examiners and looking at hundreds of thousands of images of sexual abuse material of children can be overwhelming, and so to be able to bring the canine in and let him interact with others. And also on our deployments when we're in the field, there is a lot of collateral damage sitting inside the homes of the houses that we raid. And so having the ability for him to go in and interact after we're done the work that he has to do and interact with children inside of those homes is critical to give them a little bit of comfort. So he has training in comfort and therapy, but his primary duty function is electronic storage detection. So, yeah.
And tell me about the commands. I'm just curious, like how does he know what he's working on?
So he is always looking for devices that store or transmit data. That's what he's specifically been trained to do, and so he does all of it. He does it all for food. He's 100% food reward, so he does not eat out of a bowl. He doesn't get cookies or treats.
Yes.
The minute I put a food pouch on, what you see here is not what you get. It changes dramatically. The entire room could be on fire, and he would not care one bit. All he cares about is what I'm doing,
Yes.
and he'll start searching the areas that I direct him to search. For him, he's always a little bit hungry. He gets about 3 cups a day, and he never gets food at the same time.
Yeah.
He's never fed the same way, and so every time he enters a room, he's sort of prepared to
Yeah.
do some work and hoping that he'll get asked to work. If he doesn't, he quits until he gets it. So, but he's invaluable, and we can search areas now a lot quicker, a lot more effectively. We can save time for investigators on the ground. Instead of searching, they can be processing and dealing with the things that are going on there. And we have had other cases here in New Hampshire and down in Massachusetts where we've assisted as well, where we need to deploy canines of this capacity into places like schools to search locker rooms and large-scale areas. And we can do that quickly and effectively to make sure that we didn't leave anything behind. And that's really the goal, right, is to make sure that every piece of technology that contains data that is exploiting children is taken from that location and never left there again.
And it's not only fast, in some ways it's less disruptive.
It is, it is.
Pinpointed
Yep.
right
To
there.
tear
Yeah,
We don't have to tear
and
it up
some of those
anymore.
dogs you see are really crazy, like they jump around and they like rip things off the wall. That's not what these guys do.
Yeah.
He enters the room, he does his searches. When he gets into odor, he'll sit down.
Yeah.
And when I ask him to show it to me, he puts his nose on the location where the odor's coming from. And that's how we get the detection of it, so it's pretty fantastic.
And what was your training to work with him?
It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a
I was
lot.
about to say.
And when I got Nico, I had been with the ICAC task force for a very long time. I think I'm in my 17th year, and so I had switched over from doing interview and interrogation to taking K9 on, which was a nice change of pace for me as well.
I was gonna say that.
And so
Interview and interrogation.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we've worked a great team together for now for the last 34 months. So we have a lot of fun together.
Well done. Nice job, Nico.
And he's excited. So
A question to the combined law enforcement folks here. One of the things that this center is really focused on is interdisciplinary work, right? Everybody working together, helping each other out. What advice would you give us or support would you ask for to make sure that that kind of information sharing and interdisciplinary work continues? Because we got local, state, fed here, and it's not always, it's not always smooth. Everybody has some territory here. So advice or support you all need?
I think it's about identifying a common goal.
Yeah.
And it's been rather easy in the state with the ICAC task force and certainly with Matt and the partnering agencies. It becomes a little bit more difficult when we have multidisciplinary
Right.
teams attacking a single problem, because when you work outside of law enforcement, we all have different goals.
Right.
Right? So it's still identifying that goal, constantly reiterating it, restating it to
Yeah.
the partners, and being able to collaborate and make compromises where possible to drive the mission forward.
Okay, that's helpful. Because we're trying, part of our job in Congress is to write legislation that not only gets you what you need, but also doesn't create unnecessary barriers, right? So just trying to think through that as we're,
And sometimes we
addressing-
get these stovepipes,
Yeah.
people not able to work well across
process.
country.
That's helpful.
Great, well, thank you.
Thank you guys
Thank
very
you
much.
so much, yeah.
Can we say thank you to Nico?
Oh, you can.
Yeah, all right, I just- Nico, I don't like,
Nico.
I don't like to break rules, but.
Oh, he can be Pat.
Yeah.
That's kind of his rule.
Yeah, well, that's,
Yeah.
my son become black flash.
Right.
Is
Right, it's
would be in
demanding,
your
right?
lap at this point, but that's.
Buddy.
Yeah, you're a good boy.
You want to shake off? Good.
Yeah. All right, there's a good boy.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, that's
Excellent.
Thank you all so
very
much.
much.
Really nice to meet you. Oh, thank you so much. It was really.
Did you want to do the next? Okay, cool. I'm Kate. I'm the public affairs officer.